Hello, everyone. This is Ashutosh Sinha. Pick your cup of coffee or tea, whatever you have, and let's take a thought break. For the next few minutes, we will step off the treadmill of life and work and focus on finding our true north by resetting our compass. So join me for a cup of coffee here with Mr. Ajit Shah. Ajit Shah is the managing director of ACTICO, and he's also been someone who has had a very long and very interesting stint with various financial and consulting organizations as a leader at very senior levels, at the board level and at senior leadership levels. Ajit, very warm welcome to the show. Thank you for taking out the time today.
Thanks, Ashutosh, and nice to be here.
Pleasure, Ajit. Ajit, so as you know, this show is really about telling our audience about the amazing journey someone like you who is right on the pinnacle of your career, doing so well, and someone who has learned so much on the way has arrived. And if people can take away some snippets of learning from your journey, it will be immense. So we'll focus on that today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you obviously didn't become a managing director out of college, Ajit, right? And you started somewhere like all of us did. Just tell us a little bit about, quick 2 minutes on how did you, when you graduated, get going, and what's been the path you took to really arrive? Did you know that you were going to become an MD someday? I'm asking a stupid question here, but just for the fun.
Thanks, Ashu. I think nobody thinks what they want to be, or at least I am not a person who kind of charts out a plan of 5 years or 10 years. So you're right. Like when you pass out of the college, you kind of try and figure out what you want to do. College gives you all the skills, but the real life is quite different. So you kind of go into the real life, the corporate world, you experiment things. I think for me, that's what I always say to anybody, that I experimented a lot. I moved in different kind of jobs, different kind of roles. Along the way, somewhere you figure out that okay, this is where you are kind of heading towards. But also, I always say that you can't really, make your life or your career plan to be so precise that you say, okay, this is my end point, and I kind of focus everything only on that end point. I think we need to enjoy the journey a bit more, and I think that's where I always have been. That I enjoy the journey, and yeah, somewhere I kind of gradually from starting at the bottom of the rung in a corporate life, and then experimenting, doing a lot of different roles, went into mid management, started managing teams, started doing large kind of business management, and then you kind of by default gradually, if you are really enjoying it, then you kind of go into bigger responsibilities, and these titles will all just follow. I think that's really not something which you are driving towards. But yeah, when you take responsibilities, you kind of eventually get titles also. So I think that's how I would say my journey has been. If you ask me in one nutshell, I always would say that it's been a lot of experiments.
Let's talk about those experiments, Ajit. And I like the way the candidness. So thanks for being so candid. That's really appreciated. You would have faced some circumstances, and I often get these calls, and you get those calls, and people who talk to us, where someone landed in a company where they realized that they were not meant to be in that company or in that job, and it could be for various reasons. It could be really about just the wrong job. It could be really about their own skills. It could be really about the culture of the company. Did you face any such circumstances? And if people do, it's a dual question. What is your advice to such people? Because the first reaction is to jump off the hot frying pan. I just was on a different call earlier today when someone was facing through the same experience. So what's your advice?
So kind of difficult to answer the first part, but luckily I have not faced a situation where I landed up somewhere where, you realize after 2-3 months or 6 months, oh God, this is not what, you were kind of wanting to do, or, this is where you fit in. But, every new place, new organization, new role you take, there are always some challenges. There are always some self-doubts, can I do it? Am I right for it? Am I, fitting in the new culture of organization? All that naturally happens. And I think, that's where you learn to, get into the groove. You kind of build those relationships with the surrounding atmosphere, the surrounding environment in that organization. And also, sometimes you might be in the right organization or a right role, but you're just, I call it, you're at the wrong time at the wrong place. It happens. You really don't know. You land up in a new role. You think this is the one you want to do, but then maybe the economy is down. Take a classic example of right now. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are facing that challenge. That you join a new job, a new role, and suddenly the markets are down, and the economy is in a dire straits, and you don't know how to react to that. Even the organization themselves will be struggling, uh, and I think that's where sometimes you have to just take a step back, and kind of, instead of just trying to push on and go forward, it helps to be even moving sideways. It helps to explore something in the same organization, something different. Just I can probably share my example. I'm a very consulting, tech, financial services guy, but there was a time in the career where for close to 6 months I was head of HR for a, a big IT company. Because we were going through a turmoil, and I had to step up and take that role so that I can stabilize the organization. And yeah, you just do that. That was not never in my career plan. That was not something which probably I was you know educated in terms of skill or qualification to be an HR. But when you are a leader, you by default also have to do HR. And I mean, you just take it, did it for 6 months, you stabilize the thing, and you obviously will have other things to do. And I think that's where I always say that don't a lot of people I've seen, and to answer now your second question, a kind of an advice or some suggestions. What I have seen nowadays is people come with very fixed thoughts that
Hmm.
I want to go from point A to point B to point C, and this is how I will go it, and then my final destination is point D. Never happens, in real life. At least I don't see that. The life is so linear that you actually can go from point A to point D in that fashion you planned for. And I think if you remove that fixed thoughts from your mind, from your oh, this is my career journey and I have to do this, or at the age of 35 I have to be doing this much, managing this bigger team. Why? But I always kind of caution that.
Very well.
What is the connection there? And I think that's where then you kind of create your own self pressure. I call it. So I don't think it's society or anybody who's asking that question. You yourself create that self pressure that, oh, I have to be at point B now because I am of this age and because my all my batchmates or classmates are already there. And then you get into this cycle of that continuous don't know what to
and
do
you
types.
and you don't even enjoy your journey where you are, or what you're
Yeah.
working for end of the day, right? That is crazy. No, Ajit, I mean, you hit on a very good point while you were saying that. While I completely agree with you, the fact that how can you know just planning it without flexibility a career lead to quite a lot of misery, and I've seen a lot of stories like that, so completely agree with you. At the same time, you touched on another point that, like, in these times, a lot of companies had given offers, a lot of companies had new people joining in, and two things happened, right? One was that some companies may have deferred the offers to job
Mm.
itself, and people may have been left in a lurch. And another thing could be that people joined a company, and the company suddenly started wasn't doing so well, and it kind of became a bit of a dilemma for the person who joined in. What's your advice to people who are caught in the lurch in this circumstance today? You have so much experience, and any quick advice to such people, any quick tips would be great help.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest challenge you face when you kind of end up into that kind of situation is it is new for everybody. You don't know what you have kind of landed up into. I always say that few things which people can think of. One is seek advice. Whether it's your friend, some mentor, or college professor, doesn't matter. Your father. Advice helps in this scenario. I've seen a lot of people. They kind of keep this whole thing in their heart or their head, and that is dangerous. Better to talk to
True.
somebody and take advice. That's point number one. Point number two. There will be always setbacks in your career. Very few people in life can claim that they had no setbacks. There will be, you can count in fingers the people who would say, "Oh, I've never failed." So kind of accept that there will be ups and there will be downs, right? So if they are down, then what could you do? Could you maybe reskill yourself? Maybe could you do something else? Why is it so necessary that you have to be in that job? And I'm not kind of saying that everybody has monetary compulsions, and also that always remains. You can't say, oh, that is not the case. But even then, you could uh, I will just kind of think of it very differently, right? A lot of people are engineers, MBAs, or postgraduates and all, and you kind of made up your mind that, okay, I have to do this level of job. If I don't do this,
Mm.
I'm not doing good. Now in a situation like what maybe is like today, for example, where companies might be doing what you said, canceling jobs or retrenching, all that happens. It's part of life. Instead of just kind of being stuck that, oh, I want this kind of company or this kind of role, or this is what I want. Be flexible. Seek advice, be flexible. Maybe retrain, reskill, maybe look for alternatives. Sometimes you find that you never realize that that alternative what you go into is actually what you really wanted to do. It is. I have seen with my friends also that they would be very great in entrepreneurship and setting up business, but you were doing job, and you were very happy with that. But you just don't know that, okay, your real interest might have been to do a entrepreneurship or setting up a business, and then circumstances kind of force you that, oh, company is kind of in problem, and then you kind of say, oh, let me try something, and they become very successful because by default somewhere they kind of ended up in a situation that, oh, that's where they will probably be very successful. And I think so that for me is the second point, reskill and kind of be open to that. And third thing is that's more, I call it human, our psychology, that if things go bad, they always come up and become good also. So,
Mm.
it's a cycle. So let's not get into that rut, oh, this has happened to me. So, my whole life is spoiled. I think that, it's a cycle. You have, things go bad and then things will become good. So that positive mindset, I think
Very
keeping
true.
that is very important, I would say.
I think you summarized it beautifully. All the 3 points are very, very pertinent, Ajit, and I do hope everyone can take that away. In fact, you were mentioning how you had to play a director of HR role, for example, in between somewhere in your career that was away from your domain. And I've seen people get very, very sticky about what they do. I don't want to do this. I want to only do this in career. And I think all great journeys and of executives I've spoken to at senior level who arrived, one thing is common, they've been very flexible. Of course, they have a choices of some no-go areas which are
Mm.
more on the border work ethics and things like that. But no, they're not inflexible from a business standpoint. And I think that really makes them who they are from a breadth of experience.
Mhm.
So you spoke about skills, Ajit, and in these times, someone is asking me that, while I have hit this wall now because of reason A, B, or C, how do I reskill quickly, right? It's not, I've unfortunately not done that so far with 18 years of my life so far. And I'm left in lurch and I have to pick up something and do something. And I was telling them, maybe what you could do is at least get going with a plan of
Mhm.
what you want to really be skilled at. That's a good time for you to reflect for a moment. It's unfortunate you landed in this spot, but at least let's start thinking. Anything on that cue for people who are stuck there, who have really landed themselves in a spot, they've not reskilled themselves, and they could be in also industries which are not booming anymore, right? They could be dying industries or fading industries. What's your advice to such career professionals in the mid-career or who are without jobs at this moment?
So I think, like I was saying earlier, right? Skill is reskilling is important, and you rightly said that at some point you have to take a step back. I call it be with yourself. Right? Figure out what next for you, right? Because in our day-to-day normal life in a corporate, you don't really get a time to step back and actually rethink or replan. And then sometimes, even these forced circumstances actually give you that time, which might not be the right way, but it happens. You suddenly are in a bad situation, but you have time now, and you can replan. Now, yes, there are industries which are go down, because of just as a cyclical nature. For me, there's no right answer to say, okay, you go and reskill in this area. No, it's easy to say to somebody, oh, today the future is digital, and just reskill yourself in digital. I don't think that works, because honestly, not everybody might be interested in that or even good at that. Uh, I think the skilling which is very important is the I call it the life skills in general. So things which you kind of you think you can an area which you can get into. Yes, learning digital is important in today's world, and I always and I come from that background where I kind of say to everybody, oh, you have to be digital, get digital, get digitally savvy. All good, but there are genuinely people who are not into that thing. But there are areas, in your field, there will be areas which are still booming. So it's not that the whole industry is going down. The good example, let's take the case of a lot of Asia actually, and even going in US and all. A lot of people had this sales and marketing roles where you had all these distribution shops, and there's a whole distribution networks. Now suddenly last 2 years, actually you don't need those shops, those intermediaries, those things, because you actually can be on a portal and there's a supplier and buyer everybody, so you don't really
True.
are in that trying to manage those seven layers of intermediaries. And you suddenly feel, oh god, my whole skill was that I used to every week meet these seven levels of people, distributors and whatnot, and that was my skill. So what do I do now? My point is, actually that was not your skill. Your skill probably was managing relationships. Your skill probably was to sell whatever goods or services you're selling, and those skills can easily be transferred into something else. It's just a question of finding out. You can move it to digital in that sense. You can move it to some adjacent industry in that sense. So there'll be various avenues. I just don't believe that there are no avenues. But the biggest problem happens. It happens with everybody. It's not like it doesn't happen. Your own ego comes into play. I call it. You kind of are stuck saying, "Oh, but this is a job I can't do, or this is below my level," and then you just struggle. Whereas sometimes it's worthwhile to you might be a I don't know a mid-level or a senior manager in an organization where you have been working for 20 years, but maybe it was an old school kind of economy company, and suddenly the whole markets have collapsed or the company has collapsed. Now, when you move to a new age company, maybe an e-commerce company, it's quite possible that you will not be the same GM, what you were in the earlier company. You might have to be one amongst, many people. You might have to report to somebody who is probably 20 years your junior, because it happens. Most of the startups are kind of started by guys who are like 22, 25, and you are probably 45. So that is where you have to be open to do that. You can't say, oh, this is a kid and I will not report to him, because actually you can learn a lot from that kid who
Yeah,
actually has
yeah.
built a new organization.
Very, very well put. And I think you addressed something which I was going to ask you. So you already hit that beautiful point about overcoming your own ego or whatever that might be, and being able to even report to someone who might be able to teach you from a different direction. So why not? Um, just going a little macro here, the industry is shifting and changing. The world economy is changing. You are based in Singapore, am I right now? And which everything seems to be like really flat. I mean, the world is flat in a very different sense nowadays. Economies and trajectories have become very similar. Do you see any part of the world which is much more dynamic from a future lens perspective than the rest? And it's not to be politically accurate, but every India is supposed to be like a booming place right now, and there seems to be a lot of opportunities emerging. US was doing well, and then suddenly the trajectory is kind of shaped a little bit differently. Southeast Asia was doing very well, and is kind of right now plateauing a little bit because of the sudden hit. Or so, is there a formula someone should locate the career in, especially if it's a global citizen, or it doesn't really matter as per you?
So my view on that is, yes, if I look at economy, yeah, I would say India or China and the Asian economies still are doing well, probably compared to some of the, Western economies, European and as well as American. But again, it's not that those economies, are in, kind of collapse or anything. It's just that, there's always a cycle where you always have the same thing. You'll always have ups and downs. Like the humans have ups and downs. I think the economy also has it. But if you're a global citizen, I think that really doesn't matter, because if you are really global, you are willing to move around and all, and you have brought yourself to a point where you can manage the cultural nuances of whichever location you are on. But I think the most important part there is, to finding out what do you want to do in terms of, there's no point of just going to a, New York or a London and say, okay, because, everybody is doing that. Will you enjoy being there? I think, will you enjoy being in, Singapore or Hong Kong, for example, or Dubai, for example? Not everybody can be. And these are all great locations, whether it's, Singapore or Dubai or London, they're all great world cities. So if you're a global citizen, these are the best places and you can succeed. For me, that has never been the, I would not say that that should be the criteria of, thinking in that line. You rightly said, a lot of opportunities in India, but even people are not even touching the real, tip of the iceberg kind of thing. You still are grappling, on different levels. And I think which I can be candid and say, sometimes we all get into that standard routine. We kind of get into that. Okay, I need to kind of find a especially if you do this engineering, MBA, and those kind of professional courses. Oh, I have to find a job, and then in 5 years I will do this, and in 10 years I should be the head of area or some GM, and that's the mindset. If you look at India, and I'm sure you and I both have friends who became chartered accountants, for example. Most of those guys, they never went into this saying, okay, I want to be in a job and I will, do this ABCD. They started their small firm in whichever place, they were, in whichever cities they were. And they are very successful, both from a monetary aspects point of view, as well as from, the whole lifestyle point of view. And sometimes, people get into so much of this, job mindset that you kind of forget that there's a lot of other things, which can give you a similar kind of rewards.
Very well said. I'll ask you two very quick fire questions, right? And just in the interest of time, because we want to keep the show short, as long as the coffee cools down. So that's the duration of the show, literally. So question number one is, what's your sense of purpose, Ajit?
I still would say I'm trying to find it. I have vague ideas of it. They keep on changing. I think I always, I don't know whether you agree with me, but my purpose has changed over life. When you would have asked me this question, maybe when I was 25, I had a different purpose. Then I experimented. I went around in the journey. I found some other purpose. And then that has been my way, that it keeps on evolving, changing. The more I learn new things, it's not a static purpose. It's like it does evolve. And at the end of it, as a human being, what is your purpose? Your purpose fundamentally is to be a good human being. To be living a good life, to be happy, have a good family, friends, and all that. I think is applicable for everybody. I don't think it probably changes even across cultures or geography. That basic construct remains the same. You would want to help others. That's one kind of purpose. That you want to give back to society, especially when you reach a certain age, you start thinking on those lines. And I'm saying it's not one single purpose. It's a kind of combination of all that, which then gives you your true purpose or true calling to say, okay, this is where I am kind of focusing on. And sometimes you kind of figure it out, like that's where your passion is, in terms of, okay, these are the things I love. Somewhere I've read in one of the books that if you wake up in the morning and you're happy going to wherever you're going from a work point of view, that's super. And that's probably the most happiest life, right? And I always say that you will don't be rigid on trying to find that purpose, because I have again seen that at mid-level, when you reach that 40, you kind of get into that midlife crisis. Oh, what is where am I heading? I think don't fuss around so much about it. It's yes, you need to know it, and but it's not one single statement. For most of the people, some people definitely, if you're a sportsman, you will find your purpose very easily because your goal is very clear. But for a normal professional, you'll be having a multitude of purposes, and that will give you this one overarching, okay, this is where I enjoy and this is my passion, and you go towards that. And I kind of look at that way, actually.
So it's a good way. And for me also, so the sense of purpose evolves, right? Like today, in the service of others is the simplest way I can put it there. So if I can help someone, if I can change something for anyone out there with a small helping hand of career advice, or genuinely is actually helping the person discover something, that's a great feeling of joy here. So I think you're right, absolutely. And it changes over different points of time in the career. Like you rightly said, your purpose has evolved, and today the fact that you feel good about helping someone at some place, or even the fact that I like the way you put it, if you're happy just going to work in the morning, that itself shows that you're connected to a purpose. And if you're not, then you should probably step back and pause a second and look and reflect that how can you connect to that purpose which is relevant for the moment and now. So awesome. My last question to you is, what, my friend, is your success mantra, if any?
Ashwin, like, there's no one single thing you can think of, okay, this is a success mantra, and you meet that and you succeed. But they're a mix of things, right? I was saying in our discussion that the journey, I'm a big believer in this journey concept, that you should take this whole thing as a journey, and instead of focusing on that goal, try and enjoy the journey. Because if you enjoy the journey, eventually the goal will be met. I think that's how I look at it. And a lot of times what happens is you are so fixated on that goal that you don't enjoy the journey. And then, sometimes the weight of that goal is kind of on your head, and you sometimes actually don't succeed. So for me, that's, call it mantra. That's one thing which I've done in my life, never bothered about that. The second thing for me is, again, what I said earlier, be willing to experiment. I kind of personally believe that has been the thing which has helped me the most. That don't be shy of experimenting. Try out new things. What can happen the worst? You might not succeed, but you get a good experience out of it. In fact, what is happening nowadays in the last few years of this startup, I think that is a very good thing to apply on your own life also. The startup mantra is, fail fast. So you experiment and you fail fast. Then you try again and you will succeed. And I think that applies to everybody's personal life. That you should be willing to experiment, and then failure should not be taken as some bad thing. It's a learning experience. You learn it, and you will eventually succeed. So that probably is something which the second thing which has helped me. And I think the third thing in any, especially in the corporate world, is to always have some mentors or coaches or guides or whatever you want to call it, even friends, some people who can be with you in that on the journey, so who can sometimes guide you, especially the guys who are seniors to you. Can be your boss, manager, maybe some other colleague, doesn't matter actually. And this is not the hierarchy I'm talking about. This is more somebody who probably either is on the same company or same corporate as you, or maybe somebody else who is from an outside but has gone through this journey. So learn from them, because I think that is yes, I said that you experiment and fail and learn, but not necessarily that's the only way. Sometimes you can learn from other people
Others'
also.
experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's the third thing, like always in wherever you are and whichever level you might be. You might be the fresh guy from the college, or you might be the CEO of the organization. Doesn't matter. You need to have some people who can be there when you need them in terms of guidance, coaching, and all. And I think these three things generally, at least for me personally, has been very useful, I would say.
This is superb, actually. And those three mantras resonate. They're timeless, I feel, Ajit. So that actually tells me that, when I was talking to you earlier, even before the show, why you're so much at peace yourself, touchwood. And I think it's really good with the fact, because you obviously have something very simple and principled in your head about how you look at life and how you look at work. And that is tremendous. And I hope a lot of people can take away from that. Ajit, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Uh, I know we can go on. This is such a amazing topic, and the way you've been so frank and honest with your opinions and your approach and your personal journey means a lot. So thanks a lot, and talk to you soon again.
Thanks, Ashutosh, and thanks for having me.